Hey guys, welcome, and to some of you, welcome back. In this video, I'm going to take off in several World War II Taildraggers, and the reason I did this video is I was showing a P-51 to somebody earlier, and it kind of got me back into that mode of taking off, especially, and landing in a Taildragger, and went back to my training when I was out in 1996, whenever I did it, and I remember being in that airplane the first time, the instructor being in the back. He was doing the rudders. He was showing me that first takeoff. He pushes the nose down, the tail comes up, and that airplane just starts acting like you're on a bike that just lost control because you're being thrust from side to side and you're using that rudder to stay on that center line, and you really have to be ahead of it. So if you get a chance, go ahead, fly a Taildragger or fly in a Taildragger, and you'll see the difference between the airplanes. Having said that, let's jump into this. I'm going to fly several airplanes, just about all the ones that I have. They are all max weight or overweight. They're at least 104 to 109% overweight. So this is as heavy as they get. I wanted them to be heavy. I chose a small field, Argenton. This is one of the fields we use in World War II when we go on the 4YA server. It's a short field, it's a grass field, and one thing I do want to talk about is takeoffs. There's different takeoffs in a Taildragger airplane. It depends whether you're doing a soft field, short field, a normal takeoff, a full nose forward takeoff, a half nose forward takeoff, a 3-point takeoff. And, I mean, there's all kinds of takeoffs in a Taildragger. It's really up to the pilot's choice to decide which one he or she wants to do. In my case, what I'm doing, I'm kind of doing a half nose up. This gives you the best sort of performance on the grass because one, it lets you see forward a little more than doing a 3-point takeoff, and two, it gives you that angle of attack, the high angle of attack that provides lift and kind of takes the pressure off the landing gear, because you have to remember on grass surfaces, that landing gear is stressed out. So let's go on the first airplane. The first one is going to be the hardest. This is the Anton. This is the A8 Anton. Again, it's overloaded, 104% overweight. One thing about Focke-Wulfs is that you do need to bring that stick back, and bringing that stick back actually locks the tail wheel. So that tail wheel still stays straight, gives you some stability as you're going down the runway. I'm going to hold the brakes too. I'm going to go full power because this thing is going to need all the runway we can get to take off. Now, I know what some of the pilots are saying. For soft fields, you don't stop, you don't press the brakes. Well, that's an assumption. You're taxiing onto the soft field and you don't get stuck. Here, we're assuming we have soft but firm field, so we are going to use the brakes on takeoff. Once the power is full, I'm going to release the brakes, hold that stick back. Once the stick is back and tail locked, the rudder is minimal, but then as soon as I reach 110 kilometers per hour, put that nose forward. And for this one, I am going to go a little bit more forward because I don't need any angle of attack slowing me down here. I need as much speed as I can until I get to the end of the runway. So just keep it down that center line as best as I can, and then as I get to the end, just lift off at the end. That was as close as it gets. I've seen a lot of guys crash. There was like 3 guys in a row that crashed that were actually had 1 bomb, and I have bomb and 2 rockets on each wing. This was a tough takeoff. Now the next one is the P-51. This is the one that I did several times. It's going to be a little bit different this time. I am going to go to about 46, 47 on the manifold pressure. That is fine. You don't want to go full power. There's no need. It's got plenty of power. And as we start a roll, I am going to lift the tail just a little bit, not as much as I did before, just tiny little bit, just so I can see, and then provide a little bit of lift so I relieve the pressure on those landing gear. Just keep it there on the center line. As we get to about 120, 130, let just lift off. And yeah, we almost used up the whole runway, but remember, I didn't use full power in the P-51. Could have used a little bit more, but it wasn't needed. There was plenty of power. Once you're up in the P-51, you just kind of clean up, reduce the power, and put it in the climb mode. Okay, so the next one I'm going to do is the Spitfire. Alright, Spitfire has got plenty of power. I mean, basically we're going to do the same thing. I'm going to just slowly add the power. I'm not even going to go full power. I'm going to go to about 12 here on the boost. And just keep it there, keep it on the center line. Push the nose a little bit forward, just a little bit, And then you can see on the Spitfire how much the nose shimmies. Just keep it on the center line the best that you can. And we don't even have to get to the end of the runway. This thing lifts off on its own. And then just bring the landing gear up and clean up. And that's it. For my taste, Spitfire is a little bit too good compared to the other airplanes. It's a little bit too easy to fly in DCS compared to other airplanes. That's why I don't fly it a lot. I think it would give me too much of an advantage. I kind of like to be the underdog. I like a challenge. That's why I usually fly the Anton, which takes a lot of skill to fly in. But again, to each his own. The Spitfire is a great module in DCS. Okay, so the next one is BF-109. A lot of stuff happening here. Put the sight away. I'm gonna put the flaps down at the same time as I'm putting the flaps down. You're not seeing it, but I am gonna lock the tail wheel using a binded key. Put the governor switch on. Open up the landing gear button, safety cover. I'm ready to go. One thing to remember about BF-109 is that it has a delicate engine and you cannot stay at max power for very long, so got to be very careful. On takeoff, I'm not even going to go full power. I'm going to go about 1.35 ATA or something like that, almost full power. And as I'm rolling, I'm going to have to use a little bit of a brake to stay on the center line. And once I'm rolling, I can start putting the nose down, not too much, just a little bit. Gonna keep it on the center line. As I reach about 220, 230, just give it a slight pull up, and that's gonna lift me off. Once I lift off, landing gear up, start cleaning up. And as soon as possible, you want to bring that power down to under 1.3 ATA, just to save the engine, because it is a little bit of a sensitive engine. Okay, the next one is a Dora. Dora is a completely different airplane than Anton. It's got a bigger, better engine. It's a lot more powerful. It's faster, so you don't need full power to take off even with full weight, but you do need to bring the stick back. That locks the tail wheel in place. I'm going to go to about 1.4 ATA. 1.5 plus is available. I don't need it. Dora's got plenty of power. As I reach that 100 kilometers per hour, that stick goes forward, nose down just a little bit. I don't want to go full down, just a little bit, so I can see. The VR helps a lot. You can see the end of the runway. Just aim for that end, and that as you reach about 230, 240, lift up slightly, let it lift off on its own after that, and we're airborne. Once airborne, landing gear up and clean it up, and Dora becomes a speed demon, almost as fast as a P-51D. So that's it for the Dora. It's not too difficult, not as difficult as the Anton. Okay, now the next one is a real beast. This is a P-47. Let's put those flaps down. Let's get a high RPM there. Let's lock the tail wheel there. Press the brakes on this one and stick back. The reason I'm doing that is because I'm going to go full power. Same as on the Anton. Remember the first video? I'm going to go full power. Once I reach full power here, I'm going to release the brakes. Keep it on that center line. I know it's hard. Even with VR, this is hard. You kind of have to use your peripheral vision. And then as soon as you get some speed, let's lower that nose a little bit so we see a little bit more. Try to stay on that center line. Rudder is very sensitive on the 47. Very sensitive. Probably as close to the real thing as I've seen. As soon as we reach 130 miles per hour, we can slowly lift up that nose and let it lift off the ground. And you can see the P-47 used up the whole runway, just as the Anton did, because it is a heavy airplane. Even though once up in the air, it actually becomes pretty nimble and fast, it takes a while to get it off the ground, even with those big wings. Which brings us to the last airplane for today, and that's going to be the Mosquito. And it's kind of different from the other airplanes that I've shown here because it's a multi-engine airplane, and that always throws in a few quirks, especially the Mosquito, since in their wisdom, the British decided that we're going to make the engine spin in the same direction, which kind of puts odd torques on the airplane all over the place, and it's a hassle to take off. So let's put the flaps down. I'm going to go 30 because soft field. Once the flaps are down, the RPM, make sure they're full, and then I do need separate throttles here. So you do steer it a little bit, multi-engine, you do steer it a little bit using except for throttles. Not much, just kind of feel your way with the throttles when you're adding them. One thing that's very important on the Mosquito is you have to bring those throttles up very slow and get it going in a correct direction. Once it gets going, it's easier, and we can add. We're going to go to about 14 on the boost, not more than that. It doesn't need any more. It's got pretty powerful engine. It's a pretty light plane, even though it's fully loaded here. I am going to push the nose slightly forward just to reduce the vibrations here. And then once we're up on the two wheels, it becomes very, very skittish. It slides all over the place. Just keep it down the center line, minor pitch up at the end, and then let it just lift off on its own. Now once it's up, it does like to turn. You do want to use rudder to correct it as much as you can. Also, you can use a little bit of aileron. All this happens is because the airplane engines are turning in the same direction, and that was done, I think, for economy. So you can use the same engine spare parts on either engine. You can use the same engine on both wings. However, it did cause a little bit of problems with the pilots. As you can see, it's got all these weird turning tendencies. So having said that, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I hope you liked it. Take care, and I'll see you guys soon.